Hi, this is Charlie for Topic. Today we are at the beautiful Mount Maunganui beach in Tauranga, New Zealand, and we'll be looking at some of the features on the new Nikon D5. Now, the previous flagship models from Nikon, the D4 and the D4S, had its issues, but this D5 really feels solid and looks like an overall winner. And the new 20 megapixels sensor seems to have a lot to offer. So by now, most of you would have heard about this machine's awesome low light performance and great new autofocus features. This machine now features 153 autofocus points. Now, unfortunately, you can only choose 55 of them, but the camera can utilize all of them. Now, even better than that, this camera now comes packed with a lot of cross-type autofocus sensors. Now that is great because now you have more autofocus points available, especially closer to the edges of the frame, that are more accurate, being cross-type sensors. Now, really important information, not all lenses can utilize all the cross-type autofocus points, so just refer to the Nikon D5 manual for basically a list of lenses that will, and a table that will actually show you which lenses will be able to use which cross-type sensors. Now, the ISO modes on this machine is simply crazy. The ISO can be dialed up all the way to equivalent of almost 3 million, which is just absurd. Now, obviously you don't get quite usable images at an ISO of 3 million, but you can now photograph basically at a moonlight scene at night. Now, already a lot has been posted about the ISO performance of this machine, and these tests are difficult to follow and repeat, and well, not all of them has real-world implications. I must say the DP review guys here on this website of them have a really good comparison between this D5 on different ISO settings compared to other Nikon cameras and other cameras out there. And what I found the most interesting is the comparison between this D5 and the performance of the D810. Now, the D810 has long been a favorite of mine, and the dynamic range of that sensor is simply awesome. Now, the D5 on the other hand seems to exhibit a slightly different behavior. It performs stunningly in low light and at extreme high ISO settings, but at lower ISO settings you'd better nail the exposure and make sure your scene is not too contrasty, because it sort of throws a lot of noise into the shadow areas. Now, this is not a biggie. It doesn't have the same range as the D810, which is just an astounding machine to use in difficult lighting conditions, because you can just pull details out of shadows like you can't believe. For this machine was designed for low light performance. So if you need ISO dynamic range, rather stick to the D810 or D750. If you need low light performance, get this machine. Now, the build and the button layout on this machine is pretty similar to what it used to be on the D4 and D4S and something like the D3, except for a couple of major changes. The live view buttons have now been moved all the way down here, which is now in a little bit of an awkward spot to get to, especially when you use a big machine like this. The ISO button has been moved from down here all the way to up here, right next to the trigger or shutter button, which is an interesting place to put it. It speeds things up a bit, but it's awkward if you're not used to it. And then most importantly, the ISO button down here has been replaced by a new little quick access button to customize your burst mode speed, which is actually quite handy, because now I'm currently in CL, or the lower speed mode. So now I can customize the speed all the way from 1 to 10 frames a second. Of course, this camera in high speed mode features a frame rate of 12 frames per second, or even 14 at mirror up, which is quite intense. Now, a feature I like most on this is the new hybrid touchscreen feature. Unfortunately, we can't use touchscreen to navigate between all the menu settings. You still have to do that using the buttons on the side. But now, if you review an image, you can simply swipe left and right on the screen, or you can hold down here and scroll with your finger for a quick scroll left and right through all your images. And the best of all is, if you want to quickly double check focus, all you do is simply double tap on the spot you want to focus in. And then you can hold and drag around, which is really cool. And then just simply tapping these little buttons on the screen, we can move and flick between images. and if you want to zoom out, you just simply double tap again. That's a really handy feature for quick review and quick decision making while you shoot. Now this handy touchscreen feature goes even further when I'm in live view mode, and at the moment I'm in stills mode, and I just make sure that I'm in full-time servo autofocus mode. I can simply touch anywhere in the scene and the camera will focus on that spot for me, which is really handy. Of course, this works better with AFS lenses than other lenses, so just keep that in mind. Also, this works great when I flick it over to movie mode. Again, just make sure that you're in full-time servo mode, and now, while I record, I can actually change my focus by simply tapping on the screen at the back. Now this can be a great feature, also an annoying feature if you actually accidentally touch your screen while filming. Now speaking of movie mode or video mode on this camera, we now have 4K available in movie mode on this D5. I'm going to just simply tap here on the info button, and then we can change our frame rates and frame size quite easily. And we see here we can select our normal 1080s at 25, 30, all the way up to 60 frames per second. But more excitingly, we have 4K at the top. But just note, if you select 4K, it will crop it down a little bit, your image, down to basically Super 35mm size, which is not an issue. What is the bigger issue though is that the bit rates on this camera are still slightly disappointing. At 1080 we have only bit rates of only around 48 megabits per second, and at 4K we have 144 megabits per second, which on a machine like this you would have thought could have been a little bit higher. I mean, Canon on some of their basic cameras already have bit rates of almost 90 in their all-eye modes. And why are bit rates important? Well, it just gives you more leeway afterwards for special effects you want to apply to your movie or color grading. So again, it seems that video is still a slight afterthought on the Nikon cameras. Now another great feature on this camera is an auto fine-tuning feature for lenses. Now we all know previously you could go into your menu settings on the Nikons or most of the pro range Nikons and go into your autofocus fine-tune menu, and in here select certain lenses and adjust your focus a little bit to get a better result out of it. But now on this D5, this procedure has been automated. Now of course, just watch out, it's not always as accurate as it should be, but at least it can help you in a pinch. So let me show you how to use it. Now the first thing you'll have to do is activate live view mode while in stills mode, and then before you focus on anything, you need to change the focus mode to single servo mode, AFS, in either normal or wide, and then you have to select the center focus spot. Now to easily do that, just simply double tap the middle selection button there. And now just press in your shutter button and let the camera focus on whatever you want it to focus. And here comes the trick. Now you have to simultaneously press and hold down the autofocus mode button on the side of the camera and the movie record button at the top. Hold it down for a couple of seconds and then you should see these messages coming up. Yes, no, definitely it's on a tripod. Yes, fix it. And there we go. A new value has been saved and it was successful. Now let's go and look what that new adjustment value was. Autofocus fine tune. Saved value is -4. So it adjusted it a little bit for us. That's quite awesome. Nice handy feature. Of course, you just need to test this and make sure that it all works as it should, because you basically can make a little bit of a mess of your focusing if you don't get it right. All in all, this machine is a really solid performer if you're going to be using it in low light, high ISO settings, and if you need autofocus accuracy. It's really a great upgrade from the D4 and the D4S, and if you're still stuck on the D3 and D3S, this one is definitely worth it to upgrade to.